Hey guys, so we're in section 4.2. This is page 343, and we're just going to continue on. So we just talked about how to find the slope from a graph, but we can also find the slope from a formula, and it's this formula here. So notice that this formula requires that you have 2 points, so they are labeled as shown. And I think it's probably easiest if we just get right into an example, kind of showing how this works. So what I'm going to do here in example 3 is I'm going to give you 2 points, and then we're going to use that formula to help us just figure out the slope. But there's a little bit of a plot twist to this. So we're going to do this twice, switching the order that we calculate the points in, because there's kind of a greater point about the slope formula that I think sometimes people miss. So the 2 points that we're going to use are going to be 2, 3 and 4, 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. So in the first time that I'm going to do this, I'm going to consider this to be my x1 comma y1, and I'm going to consider this to be my x2 comma y2. So I'm going to plug in these points kind of into this formula as we see it. So I'll go ahead and fill that out over here. So let's see, it's going to be y2, so that would be this 7, minus my y1, so that would be this 3, so this would be 7 minus 3, over, and now x2 minus x1, so this is x2 minus x1, so it's 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2. So now we just work this out. So 7 minus 3 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2, so the slope here is 2. Okay, so here's the first way, but here's what I want to show you. It does not matter which point you want to call x1, y1, x2, y2. So now I want to calculate this just one more way, just to kind of prove this point to you, because this is very important, because people sometimes get confused with this, and then they kind of make things harder than they need to be sometimes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my x2, y2, and I'm going to call this my x1, y1. Okay, so let's just do the whole calculation again. So I need to do y2 minus y1. So now in this case, this is going to be my y2. This is going to be my y1, so this will be 3 minus 7. And then I've got x2 minus x1, so here's my x2, here's my x1. So now this is going to be 2 minus 4. So now if I work this out, this is negative 4 over negative 2. Negative divided by negative becomes a positive, so this all equals 2. So here's the point I'm trying to make. It doesn't matter which point comes first. So if you have a preference as to which point comes first, that's totally fine. The thing that is important, though, is that the point kind of stays with itself in the function. So for instance, here's my 4 and my 7. Notice that they are either, they have to be kind of on top of one another. So I can't have, what I can't have, right, would be something like this. I couldn't have 7 minus 3 over 2 minus 4, because then I've kind of split them across from one another. So this would be the one way I can't do it. But as long as I kind of keep that point together, that's fine. And that also works with the other point. So I have this 2 and this 3 together. So see how they stay together in those formulas? That's kind of what you're thinking of, or that's the way that I kind of look at it. So I just want you to prove this to yourself and go ahead and try this. So why don't you go ahead and do, how about negative 1, 3, and how about negative 3, negative 4. So pause the video, try this both ways. So do just like we did in the last example to prove this to yourself. Hit play when you're ready. So let's start with calling this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. So if I set this up, this is going to be negative 4 minus 3 over negative 3 minus negative 1. So then this will be negative 7 over, well, this becomes negative 3 plus 1. So this will ultimately equal negative 7 over negative 2. So this becomes positive 7 over 2. So it's a lot of work. Okay, so it's positive 7 over 2, so there's my slope. So now I want to calculate this the other way. So now I'm going to call this, so my negative 1, negative 3, negative 3, negative 4. And now I'm going to think of this as my x2, y2, and I'm going to think of this as my x1, y1. So let's just see if this still works. Okay, so I'm going to take y2 minus y1, so that's going to be 3 minus negative 4. And then x2 minus x1, so that's going to be negative 1 minus negative 3. So this becomes 3 plus 4 over negative 1 plus 3, and so ultimately this equals 7 over 2. So yes, we did get the same thing, right? And that's really what we're looking for, and we just want to watch out for and make sure that we're good on. Okay, so let's move on to the next page now. Same idea, but with a slight twist. So now, I want you to calculate these two slopes, the one between 3, 4, and then the one between 3, 7. And then I want you to, and you only have to calculate it one way, by the way. You don't have to do it twice as now. I know it says here you have to do it twice, but you know, I'll cut you a break. So now, let's do, how about 1, 2, and 5, 2. So I want you to calculate both of these. I will say something maybe kind of weird will happen. Pause when you think you've found it and you're ready to go on. Or play when you're ready to go on. Okay, so now I've got my m, so this is going to be 7 minus 4 over 3 minus 3, so I get 3 over 0. Okay, let's just hold there for a second, and I want to compare that to what happens with b. So for b, I get 2 minus 2 over 5 minus 1, so this is 0 over 4. So in both cases, I've got a 0. So which one is it where it's undefined? If you are dividing by 0, that is going to make this undefined. And you do actually want to state that it's undefined. You don't just leave this as is. You don't write it as 0. It's not a number, right? It's undefined, so you have to actually write that out. Versus this one does actually equal 0. So there's a big difference here that you kind of have to keep in mind. And notice what this is actually saying. This is saying that you have some sort of rise, but you have no run. If I think of this as a rise of a run, some rise, 0 run. What is this one saying? No rise, but a run. So you can also kind of think of what those lines will look like. So we could actually generalize this now. So horizontal lines have this form. They are equations of this form, y equals a number, and they have the slope m equals 0. So this right here would be a horizontal line, and I can actually prove that to myself. So let's see, I will go ahead and just draw this out real quick. So I've got 1, 2, so here's 1, 2, and here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. So here it is, here's my horizontal line. Okay, confirmed. So this has a slope of 0, and it was a horizontal line, so we're good to go. Okay, so what about this other one? Vertical lines have equations of this form, and they have undefined slopes. So if I just try to map that out again over here, so let's see, I'll just draw this, maybe I'll just draw one part of this graph over here just to prove it to you. 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's 1, 2, 3. So I'm at 3, 4, and then 3, 7. So there are the 2 points on this particular graph, and I can see that this is definitely vertical. So that's just a general form of some of these lines that you want to keep in mind. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to move on to the next page, and I want to talk a little bit more about slopes of lines and just something else that we can do with them now. So now we've talked about how to find them on graphs and how to calculate them. Now let's talk more about how to use them. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from this point 1, 2 for these next two graphs, and I'm going to give you a slope. So I'll show you what the exercise is going to be. I'm going to start with the slope m equals -1/2. So first I need to start by finding this slope, or sorry, this point 1, 2. So where is that on the graph? So I come over here, here's 1, and then I go up 2. So here's my point 1, 2. And now what I want to do is I want to count out this slope to determine what the line would look like. So starting from here, am I going to go up or down? I'm going to go down, down 1, and then I'm supposed to go to the right 1, 2. Down 1, and then go to the right 1, 2. So I've got a nice crisp line, kind of the outline of a line here. Always the moment of truth when I have to draw the line. Okay, so that would be the line here. So that's the exercise. So I want you to once again start from the point 1, 2 for this next graph. And now I want you to draw a line, how about with the slope of, how about 3? So think through that. Pause the video, hit play when you're ready. Okay, so I'm starting at 1, 2 again, and now I've got this slope of 3, so I have to think about what it means to actually be 3. So if it's 3, so 3 is the same as 3 over 1, so this is kind of buried in this slope, right? So that's something you have to just think about when you do problems like this. So starting here at 1, 2, now I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. And one thing that you can do if you have this pattern, the rhythm of this pattern down, I went up 1, 2, 3 and over. I could also just reverse directions, go down 1, 2, 3 and just go to the left. So that is something that you can do if you've got the pattern established. You can kind of go in reverse. But if that's too confusing, you don't have to do that. Okay, so this is actually now that we've got these two graphs on here, if you think about what we were doing in the last section in 4.1, it was kind of a pain to draw graphs or to actually figure them out with just having a table and selecting random points. This was pretty quick, right? So I have a point, I have the slope, bada bing, bada boom, I just put it all down, I'm ready to go. Okay, so I want to do this just one more time with you guys on this next page. So now you're going to start from the point 2, -1, so different point, plot twist. And now what I want you to do is I want you to, why don't you plot out the slope, I don't know, what do you think? How about -2? So go ahead and just start from the point -2, -1, and then draw a line that would have slope -2, hit play when you're ready. Okay, so here I am starting at 0, so I'm going to go over here, -1, -2, and then I go up to -1, so here's where I'm starting. And now, to get to the next points, I need to go down 1, 2, and over 1. I'm going to go down 1, 2, and over 1. Personally, I like to have 3 points just so I get a really nice clear line. Helps me draw it a little bit better, although that line looks a little terrible. Alright, now you might have to go back and look at what we were just talking about on the previous page. But what I want you to do next for these next two is I want you to then come up with what will the line look like, still starting at -2, -1, right? So starting at that same point. What does this line look like when m is 0 versus when m is undefined? Hit play when you're ready. So here's -2, -1. So remember this 0, this means that there is 0 rise, right? So if I'm not going up or down at all, that's actually telling me right away that I know I have a horizontal line. If I want to go over, so if you're like, well, what would I even go over? It doesn't even really matter, right? So if you want to call this 0 over 1 just to help you graph this, that's totally fine. So starting here, I go up 0, okay, and then I can just go over 1, and now I can really clearly see what this line needs to look like. It's definitely a horizontal line. So this is a really good strategy to use for when you're not sure. Sometimes people are like, I can't remember, is it vertical or horizontal? That's a good way to kind of figure it out. And then this one's going to be undefined. So if it's undefined, that means that it must have a 0 in the denominator. So it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter what you want to put on top if you want to think about this in terms of rise over run. If I want to think about this as rise over run and I just want to call this 1 over 0 just to help me draw this, well, first I'm going to put down the point -2, -1, and then I'm going to go up 1, and I'm not going to have any run, so I'm just going to go up 1 and that's it. And now once again I can really clearly see the shape of this line. So that's just kind of a way you can remember how to draw horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, I think that's good for this video, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.